All right, so we got a lot to talk about as usual. The first thing I wanted to bring up is Ted Wheeler, and then for anyone who doesn't know that or know who he is, the mayor of Portland. Portland has had rioting. Some people will tell you there's protesting. There definitely is some protesting, but there's as much or more rioting going on. It's been going on for I think probably pushing three. I think it's over 100 days now. So over 3 months. The reason for this story is Portland Mayor Ted Wheeler moving to avoid rioters targeting his home. They've been showing up to his house. I believe he lives in an apartment actually, but none or a condo or something. But nonetheless, they were showing up to the building. I don't believe they got inside, or if they did get inside, they didn't get up and close or anything. But again, the whole point of this being is how many examples of this kind of stuff do we have to see before people admit that they're wrong? Like, I don't know how many examples of this we have to see before of politicians saying one thing and doing another thing, but refusing to admit they're wrong. Like I say, this guy's probably one of the biggest idiots in politics these days. Again, for the simple reason that they refuse to give in on anything because they view giving in as proving Trump is right. And again, I don't care about the whole whether you like Trump, hate Trump, it doesn't matter. But the fact is that um, Wheeler is wrong on this one, and Trump is right. And the reasons that they need to come up with to justify their worldviews is absolutely insane because they got to come up with stuff that's just complete nonsense. The whole Trump secret police garbage. Well, number one, like I say, there's so many just bold-faced lies they tell you when it comes to this. I mean, the first one being is the secret police. No, they're not a secret police. Oh, they're snatching people up. They literally detained like a handful of people for questioning. And they're not the cars were unmarked, but again, police use unmarked cars all the time. In fact, you drive around on a day-to-day basis, and you're actually paying attention because a lot of people are just so stupid they don't know the difference. But um, you see almost as many unmarks as you do marked, right? So the idea that is has anything to do with is absolutely insane. Not to mention too, the Trump police were just protecting the federal property, right? The courthouse and whatever other federal property they have, and they're perfectly within their legal rights to do that. So again, the fact that they have to just flat out lie to people to prove their to try to prove their point. Um, just goes to show just how disingenuous they are. And like I say, the main point I want to get at is um, how many of these examples do we need to see for these people to admit they're wrong? Like seriously, like we seen it in Chicago. The mayor was like, "Oh, they're peaceful protests," but then when they came to her neighborhood, she banned them, right? Like they won't ban them from the average person's neighborhood, but they'll ban them from their own, right? And this is the thing that bothers me so much about these people nowadays is that you have I don't know if it's a majority of the population. It certainly appears like it's a majority, but I'm not sure it actually is. I think there's a lot of people that are just afraid to speak up, because if they do, the mob may come for them. They think, which sometimes they will. So that is just in some ways, but I still would disagree with that. But the main point being is that why does the average person view it as a badge of honor to be treated like a slave, like a second class citizen, right? Like why do people view it as a badge of honor? I kind of understand it. But I think there's still other aspects to it. I think number one is that the media and these politicians in general convince the average person, because the average person is so stupid by design, that oh well, being treated as a second class citizen is a badge of honor, right? Like you having to follow rules that we don't have to follow is a good thing, right? Like you see this now with Pelosi and her hair thing, that oh well, hair salons can't open, but if I need a haircut, they can, right? Like just the sheer hypocrisy. And this is the thing too, that by these politicians doing this, like I said, they're admitting they're wrong, because if their ideas were right, they wouldn't have to break their own rules, right? Like they wouldn't have to, and this isn't necessarily breaking your own rules, but this is just proving that these quote unquote peaceful protests are not peaceful, because if they were, why would you move to avoid them? Why do all these, city councilors and politicians need massive security details to go out in public? Well, why? Because the protests are not peaceful. I mean, there's probably some peaceful protesting going on, but there's definitely no shortage of violence going on. And until people can wake up, because again, like especially in Canada too, like people in Canada are so brainwashed, it's not even funny. Like, I think that that's something that's definitely a little bit better in the States, depending on the area. But Canada, like, is even people in Alberta, which is supposedly the most, um, awake province, which I think they are, maybe Saskatchewan. But I mean, I can't imagine just how bad it is in Toronto and in Vancouver and these areas. Like literally, like 95% just mindless, just dumbed down people, and a lot of it, it's not their fault. They're just people that are naturally susceptible to propaganda. But like, come on, like we got to reach a tipping point at some point here. And this is the other really big thing I wanted to bring up here is some Facebook posts by Jacob Blake, not the guy who got shot, his dad. Apparently, they have the same name. Um, yeah, he's rather racist. You know, and this isn't. I don't believe this is like 100% confirmed. So this the evidence could come out that disproves this. But I've seen many posts of people showing this kind of stuff, and I'm not to mention too. I mean, you can literally see posts that he's made that is rather racist, specifically anti-Semitic. And this is the thing too. I really don't understand about blacks and a lot of these, and like especially Muslims, like especially the vicious anti-Semitism. And this is the thing. Like something that a lot of people just don't understand too is that if you read the Quran is has more anti-Semitic statements, even per it wouldn't be per capita, but per if you adjust for the amount of writing than Mein Kampf does, right? So this is the thing too that these lies that people believe is if we're actually going to deal with racism, then are we actually going to deal with racism, or are we going to deal with all this make believe garbage that people are talking about nowadays? And this is the thing too that by the left's own standard, this guy should be canceled, right? Like this guy should be canceled, but no, because they can use him to push a crazy leftist ideology, they will take advantage of that and push said crazy leftist ideology. So yeah, like this is the thing. Like, why isn't this more in the news? Like, just imagine if one of the cops that was involved in the whole Jacob Blake thing and posted stuff like this, especially against blacks. That would be proof of racism. But and not to mention too, like that would literally be the biggest story. That would be way bigger than George Floyd. That would be worldwide news. But because I think anybody with half a brain knows that that was clearly self-defense, um, yeah, people just aren't going to talk about it. And this is the thing. Like, are these really? This guy was put up, on the anniversary of the "I Have a Dream" speech. He got up there and gave a big speech, and I mean, to me, those people are just they're so annoying to watch because it's all the whenever they get into the whole no justice, no peace, and all those stupid chants. Like number one, um, their version of justice is lynching people regardless of how much evidence there is. It doesn't matter what the evidence shows, the cops deserve to be lynched. So that's the problem with those people is that they're beyond insane. Like, and this is the thing too is that they cloak themselves with the whole racial justice BLM narrative. Like, no, I don't. This is the thing. Like I've said it a million times, but there's still so many people that believe this. Is that I could care less what you call yourself. I'm going to judge you by the actions that you, or the consequences of your actions, and the consequences of their actions isn't no justice, no peace. Because if it was actually no justice, no peace, they would allow a fair, honest, and open, objective trial to go on, and if the courts and the jury, found the cops innocent, they wouldn't go around rioting and looting and starting all this garbage all over again. But what's going to happen is they're going to do that because, I mean, the cops may be found. I mean, in both the George Floyd case and in this case and in the Rayshard Brooks case, I mean, they're all pretty much. I mean, they're different in that George Floyd died of a drug overdose. Rayshard Brooks, I think, couldn't have been more obvious self-defense. And same goes for this one too. So again, if it was actually justice, well, they would be perfectly fine with the outcome of the trial. But the problem is that they will only be okay with the outcome of the trial if the cops are convicted, right? That's the only way they'll be fine with it. So again, they don't believe in justice. They believe in a crazy political ideology where if an altercation happens between a black person and a white person, the white person must be guilty. They are every bit as bad as what they claim to be against, and I would argue even worse. I would argue even worse because more BLM kills more people every year, and BLM and these kind of people, they kill more people than the police kill unarmed people. More innocent people are killed by BLM than are killed by police, and the numbers clearly back that up because the numbers they clearly point to justify their positions don't adjust for any sort of nuance, any of that kind of stuff, like none whatsoever. I mean, they include like Mike Brown and stuff in their examples of people, innocent blacks killed by police when they clearly were not innocent. So um, yeah. So the next thing I wanted to bring up here is from Alberta Wild Rose, and they say CTV News this morning found a nutritionist to tell their audience that you cannot boost your immune system naturally. The only way you can boost your immune system is, wait for it, a vaccine. Now, again, I've heard conflicting reports on what exactly they said, but the one thing that I do know 100% for sure is that the fact that the mainstream media has spent pretty much zero time telling people what you can do to boost your immune system just goes to show where the bias lies, right? Like the mainstream media, one of the largest contributors of money to the mainstream media is the pharmaceutical companies. In fact, I believe it is the largest, right? Partially because their audience is mostly old people who are more likely to use pharmaceutical drugs, but nonetheless, that is the largest people. Now, again, boosting your immune system naturally completely contradicts that point, right? And this is the thing, too, I can't stand about all these idiots that going along with the lockdowns and the mask garbage and all this stuff. Like, um, it's you people who are the ones that are benefiting the big corporations and the pharmaceutical companies. Like, this just goes to show just how ignorant and again, they're largely people on the left, right? Like they rail against corporations and corporate greed and all this garbage, but yet they could care less that the people running, I mean, the big executives and heads of these big corporate, pretty much every big massive corporation has gotten way richer over the last over the lockdowns. Basically, I mean. I think what Amazon has gone up over 20 billion in value over this. Walmart is way up. Bill Gates has gotten much richer. You look at all these massive corporations. Again, if you're so against corporate greed, why are you supporting a policy that leads to these big, massive corporations enriching themselves? And this is an example of them actually unjustly enriching themselves too. But the left could care less, right? Because they only care about it when it advances their political agenda, right? Like um, when it's shown that their stupid socialist policies don't work because they don't have the money to pay for it, they always jump to the whole tax the rich, right? And then when that doesn't work, it's well, we got to tax them more. But then they just keep leaving and leaving and leaving, and you end up with absolutely nothing, which is exactly why socialist countries always fail because off the start they actually work out not bad. But the problem is eventually all the productive members of society either leave or are basically taxed away, and then you're left with all the nobody's producing pretty much, right? And that's why it collapses. So anyway, like I say, that just goes to show you all the evidence you need to know that um, the mainstream media is completely disingenuous when it comes to this. If they actually cared about this kind of stuff, they would be telling people ways they can naturally boost their immune system. We already know that the vast majority of people who die of this are people with weakened immune systems. Like, I mean, it's the easiest thing you can possibly point to. Like, just imagine if, like, this is like literally like, what is it? what is it, 6% of people are dying actually just from the virus. In other words, the vast majority of people are dying with a weakened immune system. Hey, you think it'd be an easy fix to tell people to just um, strengthen their immune system. But why don't they want to do that? Because the pharma companies and the healthcare system, all these kind of things want to make their money, right? Like the left rails against private healthcare systems because all they care about is money. But yet when it comes to ours, yeah, they could care less, right? Like um, it, being greedy, it's only a thing when the private sector is doing it. It's only a bad thing when the corporations are doing it. But when the corporations are greedy and it benefits the left, then we don't care, right? Like these people are so ignorant. It's and complete a-holes, frankly. And the last thing I wanted to bring up is from Scott Adams. He says BLM members had good intentions at one point, but in practical terms, it has developed into a domestic terror organization that is setting back race relations by perhaps 20 years. I think it could be more than that. And not to mention, I disagree with him on the first point. I think that if you took up as a percentage of people that support BLM um, at the start of it and now, yeah, the more people had good intentions, but many of the founders of BLM are openly Marxist, right? So the organization as a whole never had good intentions. I just think that now that they've gained more and more prestige and being more recognized, they're just showing their cards a little more, right? So and not to mention too, it doesn't matter if you have good intentions either. Like if you have good intentions and the results of your intentions turn out horribly, then it doesn't matter what kind of intentions you have. Like it really doesn't. So anyway, that's the last thing I wanted to bring up. So if you like to, make sure you hit that like and subscribe if you haven't already. Make sure you follow me on Twitter, on BitChute, and on Parler. All those links are in the description, so you can find them all there.